Let's get into our next topic. Should Labour bring back winter fuel payments for everybody? 0207 862 2222 is the number that you need. The government is reportedly considering whether to make more pensioners eligible by raising the minimum income a person can have before payments are taken away, which currently stands at £11,500. This is after former Cabinet Minister Louise Haigh suggested that axing universal payments was a primary example of why voters turned to reform in last week's local elections. Writing in the Times, Ms Haigh said that she resigned, by the way, as Transport Secretary in November, but she remains a Labour MP, and she said winter fuel payments had become totemic for voters and that such unpopular policies were drowning out any good that the party was achieving. Christian, the Guardian's reporting today that Number 10 are basically sitting there, licking their wounds, I'm paraphrasing here, after Thursday's election. Everybody has told them that this was possibly the number one issue that came out on the doorstep of why people were unhappy with Labour. Do you think that they will U-turn, or are they going to try and fudge it and sort of make that U-turn not so obvious?
Oh, I think they'll find a way of fudging it by changing the threshold. You'll remember that people who earn less or have a pensioner income of, I think, about £11,500 are still eligible. But the moment you cross that by a penny, you lose all your winter fuel. And that was beyond the criticism that they had no mandate for this and they basically promised to protect pensioners. And one of the first things they did was shaft them. That was the main criticism, that it was too quick of a drop off and it was unfair. So I think they'll try and find a way to fudge it come the budget later this year. But honestly, if you're asking should they U-turn, I think it is too little, too late for Labour on this issue now. We're yet to get the final confirmation, but I reckon thousands already died this winter as a result of being too cold. And what would a U-turn do? It would admit that Labour's so-called 22 billion black hole was not true, that it was a lie, and that actually they did not care about the welfare of pensioners until it started affecting them at the ballot box. And I think that's exactly the sort of behaviour that makes people detest politicians and hate governments. And I think if Rachel Reeves, it's such a core plank of Rachel Reeves's politics, this £22 billion black hole, difficult decisions, all the rest of it, why we're clobbering farmers as well. If they U-turn and they admit that actually this 22 billion black hole wasn't that much of a deal, sorry guys, we over-egged it. Well, I think it'd be like Kwasi Kwarteng with the mini budget. What's the point of her?
Or they will say, well, we'll find the money from somewhere else. The black hole's still there. We'll get the money from somewhere else, but we're going to give people, the pensioners that need that money, we're going to lower the thresholds or give that money back. Or Karen, what do you think they should be doing?
I think, first of all, we expect from Labour for these guys to be the people that care for the privileged, the marginalised rather, people that care for those, for the poor. So to put such a punitive decree in, it was awful. Nearly 5,000 excess winter deaths last year. I remember when those stories started coming in the press many years ago, this person, whoever Edna, died in her house because she just wasn't putting her heating on. This causes such stress to the elderly. Not only that, but to say, well, you can apply for it. Anyone that's had to apply for anything, if you apply for disability living allowance, it's a 56-page document. Yeah. Nobody's going to try and attempt to do that. It's too difficult. These are cruel choices. And actually, of the 10 million people that are affected, 9.2 million spend it on the actual fuel. So that's the need out there. Why are we not either taxing the rich or saying to people, like I was given child benefit when I was doing Fame Academy, and I was thinking, why am I being given child benefit? I don't need it. We should have the option to donate it back.
We should wait for the actual figures from this winter to see how people have been affected. Let's find out what people are saying at home. Sharon's in Staffordshire. Sharon, welcome to the show. Do you think Labour should be doing a U-turn on this?
Yeah, good morning, morning, Matt, Carrie, and Christian.
It's Alexis, Sharon.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Matt's
sorry,
coming on
Alexis,
later.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yes, I think they should, Alexis, because I think it's shocking that they did it in the first place. But they're dishing out all this money for foreign aid and asylum seekers every day in hotels, 8.5 million. So why they took it away from the pensioners? It's absolutely shocking. And can I make another quick point, please, quickly? Now, the WASPy women are suffering just as much, but nobody's going on about that. They're suffering just like the pensioners that have had their winter fuel taken from them.
Okay, Sharon.
So why is that?
Here's
Sorry.
a question. Here's a question. Bringing it back will cost money. Where should that money come from?
From foreign aid.
Cut that.
Take it from foreign aid.
Okay. Which
Take
has
it from
already been
foreign
cut.
aid. Why? I don't care. Why they're dishing out all this money to foreign aid to all these rich countries anyway? Why? No, we need to keep our money for our people that have worked hard in this country all their working lives.
Okay, but Carrie, what do you make of that? I mean, it's going to come from somewhere, that money. It's estimated Rachel Reeves, by doing this, is thinking that she could add $1.5 billion to the Treasury. That money, if she were to U-turn, has to be found elsewhere.
Yep.
Cutting foreign aid?
Not what I would do, because I think it's about taxing the rich. And you talked
So
about
raise taxes on the rich?
Absolutely. You talked about fraud. All right, it's what the rich do is legal, but make it illegal, because they need to be taxed more. We'll read horror stories.
Christian, taxing more on the rich?
I think that's an easy thing to go to, but we're squeezing the rich until they squeal, until they run away at this point. We're losing millionaires faster than any country other than China. So that is increasingly not a viable solution, especially as the older age groups grow and grow, and they can't be supported by the bulk of taxpayers that are younger than them. One of the things I think, I'll make 2 quick points. Firstly, the winter fuel allowance was actually a relatively recent innovation, right? It was introduced by Gordon Brown in the late 2000s. So there's an argument that it's not been there forever and pensioners didn't need it before. What's changed? Well, the cost of energy. So we've got to bring down the cost of energy, and I don't see Ed Miliband achieving that. And the other thing, I think, is actually pensioners, a lot of pensioners do have a lot of wealth. It's tied in housing. So I think we could help pensioners if we abolish stamp duty, allow them to downsize, free up that equity to then support themselves in later life. That would also be a really clever way for the government to allow pensioners to support themselves without increasing the burden on the rest of taxpayers.
OK, look, we're going to take a break, but after that, we're going to be continuing to take your calls on whether Labour should bring back the winter fuel payment for every pensioner. But now, your calls on whether Labour should bring back winter fuel payments for all pensioners. 0207 862 2222 is the number that you need. We'll start with a message from Julia on Facebook, who says, absolutely not. The policy is correct. The winter fuel allowance should never have been a universal handout for pensioners to buy presents with. OK, let's speak to Paul, who's in West Sussex. Paul, welcome to the show. What are your thoughts? Should they bring it back?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that people are saying we're not allowed heat in our room. I mean, I can't afford my gas, electric. I'm wrapped up here. It's supposed to be the warmest place in the UK. I wouldn't like to live in the coldest place.
Paul, what do you make of some people saying, well, look, that money is going to people, to pensioners who don't need it, and therefore it's a waste. Whereas people like you who are struggling to pay for it, then of course you're entitled to it and you should be getting it. But others who don't perhaps need it, that's a waste of government money.
I agree with that, but there's more people that need it than don't want it, so that don't need it. So they need to look at that and take it off of them. But a majority of us, we just can't get by. I'm saying wrapped up. It's summer.
OK. All right. Paul, thank you. Stay warm. Julia is in Cheshire. Julia, thank you for joining us. What are your thoughts? Should they bring it back?
Yes, they should bring it back because obviously everything's been tested.
Yeah.
And when you have one of these telephone calls from the people that ring you up, the assessors,
Yeah.
they ask you all sorts of questions. I was with somebody recently who had one.
Right.
And she was on speakerphone. They ask you questions totally unrelated to your claim, like, do you have a dog? Do you walk a dog? Does anybody in the family have a dog? In other words, are you fit to exercise a dog so you're actively fit? You don't need the benefit. And, that's wrong. But I did have another friend who is an assessor, and she says, I get a percentage of everybody I get off benefits, basically, and £86 it is. And also, that's wrong. She said, I know roughly, but with the questions they've answered me, that they're not going to get it. They're going to get kicked out here. But a lot of them have got wax in their ears. They can't hear the questions that are being asked because that's not up with the doctors anymore. You have to pay for that, about 60 to 80 quid. And a lot of things that people are answering questions that they don't know because they didn't hear, and they don't like to say, I didn't hear you a couple of times. So really, the means testing and the way they do this is wrong because it's just taking off people. You get people that don't need it because you know where they live, the second homes. There are people, I agree with that, and that annoys me. But for the poor people that do need it, it's just not right, is it?
Is it a question, from what it sounds like from Paul and from Julia, it's the question of how that is allocated. We all know the basic truth. Some people desperately need it, and of course they should get it. And, the Labour government will say there are the means there for them to actually get it and not lose out. But a large amount of people don't need it.
And they are just like Paul. That is a heartbreaking caller. That's
absolutely
so heartbreaking. And we have to bring it
back. But then
back
to
for
prevent people like Paul
yes.
Falling into this category where Julia has brilliantly described the fact that sometimes the process of judging whether someone needs it or not is flawed, so that some people may drop through the cracks. The last thing you want is people dropping through the cracks. So why don't you give it to everybody, but then actually make it really easy for people who don't need it to give it back? Yes, you're reliant.
We have to create some kind of public awareness around donating back.
Yeah. So would you support something like that, Christian?
Yes, I mean you should be able to give any money you want back to the state. I mean, I know that there's a service for HMRC, for example. If you want to pay a bit more tax, if you're a wealthy millionaire feeling very patriotic, you can pay back what you want. It doesn't make much money. People don't tend to do it. The boring technical sort of answer to why the government did what seems like a very heartless thing of having such a harsh and low drop-off at £11,500 is quite simply because the government's IT system is so outdated that they had to choose between either that very, very low threshold or everyone getting it. They don't have the ability to set an arbitrary threshold of £20,000, £25,000 a year. And it would cost so much money to upgrade DWP's IT system.
That feels very wrong.
We are creaking. Yeah. We are creaking.
Julia, thank you. Really important call. Thank you for getting in touch. Sue's in Kent. Sue, welcome to the show. Do you think they need to give back the U-turn on the winter fuel payments?
Not for everybody, no. No. The man's just made a point. I've got the TV on mute, so I can't hear really what he's saying, but he's already talked about us as old age pensioners getting, selling our house because we have the money in the house and not paying any stamp duty because then we can look after ourselves. He's also just said there's a cut-off at about £11,500. That's not, why should people who haven't had the facility to look after themselves or even taken care of themselves to provide for their old age pension get the money? And yet me and my husband, who saved all our life, put things in place, and we don't get it. None of, you know what I mean? We don't get it. But then you have people that are on lots and lots and lots of money, and they also get it. There needs to be a higher threshold.
Would you, Sue, if you got it, would you give it back?
Yeah, we don't need it.
So you'd give it back?
I'd give it. Well, I don't need it. I don't need it. Of course, they can have it back.
Okay.
You empower people.
Yeah. Sue, thank you. Later, we're going to be asking whether President Trump is balmy or brilliant.